Yesterday, I shared 6 techniques on how to read between the lines. And they're good techniques. They work when you remember to use them in the moment. But here's the thing. When you're in the middle of a conversation, it can be hard to remember to use any technique. You're focused on the interaction. You're processing what's being said. You're trying to respond. And the techniques can feel like one more thing to remember. So today, I want to share something different. Techniques you can practice outside of conversations. Because if you train yourself when there's no pressure, the skill becomes automatic. When a real conversation comes, you'll be ready for it without having to think about it. It'll just happen. I've come up with 5 techniques. They're practical, they're low stakes, and they've helped me train my brain to read between the lines. Technique 1, the subtitle exercise. This one is simple and fun. While watching TV shows, movies, or even listening to podcasts, you practice adding subtitles to what people are saying. You imagine the subtext beneath the dialogue. You pause a scene or rewind a moment. You look at what a character said, and you imagine what they really meant, what the subtext is. Then you say it out loud or write it down. For example, a character says, "I'm fine." Your subtitle is, "I'm actually not fine, but I don't want to talk about it." A character says, "That's an interesting idea." Your subtitle is, "I don't think it's going to work, but I don't want to say that directly." You're practicing the skill of subtext interpretation in a low-stakes environment. There's no pressure. You're just training your brain to look for hidden meaning. Technique 2, the emotional tone log. This is a written exercise where you observe interactions around you and log the emotional tone you notice, not just the words being said. You observe a conversation between colleagues, on a TV show, in a cafe, and you note, what are they saying? What tone are they using? What body language are they showing? What's the gap between the words and the delivery? For example, someone says, "I'm really happy for you," but their tone is flat. Their arms are crossed. They avoid eye contact. The delivery doesn't match the words. The subtext might be, "I'm actually not happy for you. I'm jealous." This trains you to separate words from delivery. You start noticing the gap, the space between what people say and how they say it. That gap is where the subtext lives. Technique 3, the missing piece journal. This is where you reflect on what was not being said in conversations you had. At the end of each day, think back to one conversation. Ask yourself, what wasn't said? What was avoided? What was the silence? For example, a colleague says, "I'm not really sure about this project." But they didn't say, "I don't trust the direction we're heading." They didn't say, "I'm overwhelmed." They didn't say, "I feel like my ideas aren't being heard." The missing pieces are often the real message. This trains you to notice gaps and omissions, the hidden messages that people don't say out loud. Technique 4, the why now. Reflection. This is where you reflect on the context behind what people say, not just what they say. After a conversation, you ask yourself, what might have triggered that person's behavior or words? What was the context? What was the why now? For example, a colleague is unusually quiet in a meeting. The why now might be that they just had a difficult conversation with their boss. The subtext is, "I'm not in a good headspace." A manager praises your work unexpectedly. The why now might be that they're under pressure to improve team morale. The subtext is, "I need you to feel motivated." Context often reveals more about a person's intentions than their words do. This trains you to see context as a clue. Technique 5, the reverse engineer practice. This is a mental exercise where you imagine someone's real intention, then work backward to see the clues they gave. You take a situation you observed or experienced. You guess the intention or subtext first. Then you trace back. What clues did they give that I might have missed? For example, you notice a friend changed the subject when you asked about a weekend event. You guessed the intention. They didn't want to talk about it. Then you work backward. They changed the subject quickly. They avoided eye contact. They gave a vague answer. The clues were there. You just need to learn to see them. This trains you to connect the dots. You actively practice working backward from the hidden message to the observable clues.